to new items of vocabulary. I'm Dan.
And I'm Neil. In this episode, we'll be discussing food waste. Just as soon as...
Neil, did you just throw the rest of that apple away?
Yeah. Well, it was quite a big one, and I couldn't finish it.
Neil, you know you shouldn't waste food.
Waste, meaning to throw away without consuming or using. It's only an apple. It's not the end of the world, Dan.
Well, that's where you could be wrong, my friend. Let me prove it to you with this week's question. How much of the world's food is wasted each year? A, a half, B, a third, or C, a quarter?
I'm not sure. I know it's a lot, so I'm going to say A, a half.
We'll find out if you're right or not at the end of this show. So the actual figure is 1.3 billion tons of food, which is enough to feed 1 billion hungry people. Where do you think all this food waste comes from?
Well, restaurants, I imagine. I mean, they can't give one customer's leftovers to another. That would be unhygienic.
Leftovers are the remains of food which has not been eaten. And while you're right, restaurants are not the main contributor to food waste.
Supermarkets. I bet they throw out loads of food once it goes past its sell-by date, or the date which it can be legally sold by.
Think closer to home.
It's us, isn't it?
Yes. In Europe, an incredible 53% of food waste comes from households, which results in 88 million tons of food waste a year. And I bet you can't guess what we do with it.
I want to say recycle, but I can see from your face, Dan, that it's not.
No. Unfortunately, it goes into landfills and decays.
A landfill is a place where rubbish is buried. I see, so the food rots, and this causes greenhouse gases, which lead to global warming and climate change.
Exactly, and the end of the world. But, remarkably, the European country of Denmark has managed to reduce its food waste by a very significant 25%.
That's impressive. How did that happen?
They attribute it to a woman called Selina Juul.
I think I've heard about her. She became a household name in Denmark overnight.
A household name is one which everybody knows, and that's right.
I thought she was Russian.
She is, but I'll let her explain.
I come from a country where there were food shortages. Back then in Moscow, communism collapsed. We had the collapse of infrastructure. We were not sure that we could get food on the table. And coming to Denmark, seeing this abundance, seeing this supermarkets filled with food. But then I was really shocked to see a lot of food getting wasted.
So, Selina grew up in Moscow at a time when there wasn't enough food because of the collapse of infrastructure, meaning the basic systems and services of a society, such as food transportation.
Then, when she moved to Denmark, she found an abundance, or more than enough, food. But she saw it being wasted.
So she decided to do something about it?
Yep. She started a Facebook page in 2008 called Stop Wasting Food! And 9 years later, the Danish government credits her for their reduction in food waste.
How did she do it?
Well, lots of ideas, really. She convinced some supermarkets to stop selling their items in bulk so that people would buy only what they need. She's produced a leftovers cookbook, and she's working with 3 governments to set up an education program in schools.
Wow, she's a busy woman. So, how about you educate me with the answer to this week's question?
Sure. I asked you, how much of the world's food is wasted each year? Is it A, a half, B, a third, or C, a quarter?
And I said A, a half.
And I'm terribly sorry, mate, but you're wrong. The answer is B, a third.
Well, it's not as bad as I thought it was, at least.
Shall we have a look at the vocabulary, then?
Yes, let's. First we had waste. If you waste something, you throw it away or lose it without using it or consuming it. Common things we waste are food, time, money, and energy. We also have some expressions with waste too. Can you think of one, Dan?
A waste of space is an expression which means a thing is completely without value. For example, I am a complete waste of space in the kitchen. I can't cook at all. Next we had leftovers. Leftovers are the remains of food or a meal which have not been eaten. What do you tend to do with your leftovers, Neil?
Oh, I love leftovers. Sometimes I think they taste even better than the original meal.
I agree. Pizza's a great example.
Then we had landfill. A landfill is a place where rubbish is dropped and buried. In colloquial English, we might say a dump. Do you ever take your rubbish to the dump, Dan?
Not if I can help it. I prefer to recycle as much as possible. I only go to the dump if I have to get rid of a large appliance, such as a fridge. Then we had a household name. To be a household name is to be well known by ordinary people of a particular place or culture. Can you think of a person who's a household name at the moment, Neil?
Oh, that's very easy. Donald Trump springs to mind. Everyone must know who he is. Then we had infrastructure. Infrastructure is the basic systems and services of a society, such as electricity supply, trains and roads.
And finally, we had abundance. If you have an abundance of something, you have more than you need. Do you have anything in abundance, Neil?
Well, when it comes to my children, I have to have an abundance of patience. Well, most of the time. And that's the end of today's 6 Minute English. Please join us again soon.
And we're on social media too, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube. See you there.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.